You know, one of the things we tell it, we do chaplains training for Billy Graham ministry. We've probably trained 1,000 chaplains along the East Coast. As a matter of fact, we go to Washington, D.C. at the end of the month. But one of the things that I tell them is this: if you've got an addiction or you've got something that's really troubling you, you go and deal with that before you go into harm's way to try to minister to someone else. You minister to yourself first. You know? Because I'm going to be unable to enter into such a delicate ministry within my life if I'm being torn apart and I don't have any comfort myself. See, remember that. Don't make yourself do that. And sometimes the things that I go through, God uses to minister to other people. That's what 2 Corinthians 2:4 is all about. Who comforted us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort them which are in any trouble by the comfort wherewith we ourselves are comforted of God. See, when you have a sickness and someone comes to comfort you and they have had that sickness, for some reason they gain that. I listen to them a little bit better because they can understand what I'm dealing with. They can understand where I'm at. That's a lot different than someone coming in from the outside who has never experienced it or never seen it. They don't listen to that person as much as that other person. See, so it is good, and sometimes God lets you go through something just so you can bring someone else through it, because you'll understand them better, and they'll feel that you can understand them better. And sometimes to bring glory to God, God does do that. A, allow them to express their fears, their thoughts, and incidentally, all of these things are part of the book I have back there, Walking Our Loved One Home. Right? And I sell my books for $10 here, but if you can't afford it, take one. I'll give you the book. I want you to have something that'll help you. But all this is all part of that book. Matter of fact, this whole morning has been part of that book. But allow them to shed their tears, express their fears, and that. Had a lady one time. My wife asked me, "Would you talk to this nurse?" And I said, "Sure." I says, "Why?" She says, "Well, she's having trouble with anger, you know." And I said, "Okay." So I met with her, and I said, "You know, it's pretty obvious. You're angry. You're angry at God." I said, "Did you ever tell him you were angry?" And she says, "No, I can't do that." I says, "Why?" Well, she says, I'm Catholic, and I went to my priest, and I told my priest that I was angry, and my priest says, "Don't you ever be angry at God." You know, I says, "Well, I don't want to contradict your priest, but I want you to find a place of prayer when you go home, and you get on your knees, and you tell God just how you feel. To surprise it, how much he can handle. You know, to just let it out." And what I hear most of the times is when people do that, they're not angry at God. They're angry at the situation. They're not really angry at God. They still love and care for God. You know, they could have, the disciples could have said, "Jesus, we're just men, but let us know where you're hurt. Let us know how we can help you. We're here." And we often don't know, but to listen is to care. And of course, you've heard it over and over again that God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth so that you listen twice as much as you talk. And to some people, that's hard. Respond. Give a hug or a kiss. And you can't catch what they have. You don't get cancer by hugging something, by carrying something. Just be a little careful, too. Because one fellow, he was kind of thin, and I hugged him, and when I hugged him, he went, "Oh!" I didn't realize I was hurting him, but, you know, I'm going to give him a big bear hug, and he didn't need a big bear hug. That hurt. Oh, I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I don't. And then you got to be careful who you hug, too, because some people don't like you hugging. I remember one time in the church, we had a missionary from Italy, an older woman, and she had a good heart. She was wonderful, but we were down in the foyer, and I went up to her and gave her a hug, and she planted both hands on my chest and said, "I don't go there, brother." You gotta be careful. I felt like some kind of pervert or something, you know what I mean? But she didn't really want to hug. Found out later in the visit why, because she had been abused. So you don't know. So isn't this a good idea? Can I give you a hug? You know, can I give you a kiss? You know, that works a whole lot better. Don't be afraid of catching it. They happen. How would a hug felt if Jesus was by that rock sweating great drops of blood and big old Peter came by, just threw his arms around him and said, I love you, Jesus. Think it would have helped a little bit? Hugs are good, aren't they? Hugs help a lot. There's a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. So you use discretion, you use your head, and you let God lead you as you go through. Now, enlist, get as much help as you can to rest the caregiver as often as you can. Most caregivers I've seen, nobody comes to help them. Nobody comes to give them time off. They're just there, and everybody just leaves them there. That's why they're so exhausted. But boy, if you say, well, listen, we have a nurse in our church, and she's going to come by to stay with Dad, and we want you to come to church tomorrow morning. Well, they'll just go to pieces. They'll just love that as anything. Some people will say, whoa, boy, what kind of love is that she's going to go off and enjoy herself? I'll tell you, they need respite. And oftentimes the only place they're going to get respite is from the family. And hospice does real good, too, to give them a chance to get along, because they have qualified people to come and take care of you. But then they're afraid, well, what happens if I'm out going to church and then they pass or something happens, you know what I mean? And those things enter into it. But I basically want to get as much help for that person as I can so they don't feel so lonely, so they don't feel so left out of everything. They want to come to church. They want to feel part of life again. Because what do we know? Well, here's what we know. When that person does pass, their life is drastically changed. Their life is totally changed. It's totally new. You know, sometimes a person will care for a person for years, and all of a sudden they pass, and their life has changed. Their whole reason for living was taking care of that loved one, and all of a sudden the reason isn't there, and that hurts. There's a lot of pain there. But the good part about it is we get through grief recovery, and that is, yes, it is a new life, and that'll be good too. You know, and we'll work on that after lunch. That's an important part of it. But how about this? Hey guys, let's go to be with him, even though we sit here. You know, I think Jesus would have not, hey, go, I told you to go by that tree. I don't think so. I think he would have just let them kneel beside him, and the same thing would have happened. Remember, 3 times Jesus went through that. 3 times he went through the same experience. It wasn't just go to the garden, have these feelings, say these words. He said the same words and had the same experience 3 times. 3 times he asked Father, if there's any other way, let this cup pass. 3 times. Which meant that was a pretty tough situation. But the time that he changed was when he came up with, well, nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done. That's when the door opened, and he was able to go through the door. See, and the person we'll see this afternoon, when that door opens and they go through a new door, they find out that there's a lot of life left. A lot of life. Sometimes there's things that keep them from going through that door. We'll talk about that this afternoon. Send thee help from the sanctuary and strengthen thee out of Zion. In other words, says, my help cometh from the Lord who made heaven and earth. You know, if I don't look for God for help, then I'm probably not going to get the help that I really need. Be kindly affectioned one with another, with brotherly love, in honor, preferring one another. You know, when I look, years ago, someone told me to do this. And they told me, put your finger in the book of Acts, and then put your other finger in Romans, and just